How can our language catch up with the changing nature of our environment under climate destabilization? This mini writing workshop will help you find the words to describe the new feelings and situations. Words that we then print and hang in the art installation Hot House. It is a way to make our collective voice visible. I look forward to seeing what you come up with. But first, a story about a spider. A UCLA researcher recruited people with spider phobias for a study. They were divided into 4 groups. Each group was led to an open outdoor enclosure that had a tarantula in it. The researcher encouraged the participants of each group to get as close as they could to the spider, to try and touch it. No one did. Then each group was taken inside, where another tarantula in a closed glass cage was set in the middle of the table. The first group was asked to label what they were feeling. Some people said they were frightened of the spider. Others felt anxious. The researcher said they could go. The second group was asked to tell themselves alternate ways of viewing the situation, such as, "The spider is in a cage, it can't hurt me." The third group was asked to ignore the spider entirely and talk about other things as a distraction. The fourth group received no instructions once they came inside and just sat looking at the spider. A week later, the researcher called the groups back to the outdoor space. She again asked them to get as close to the tarantula as possible, even reach out and touch it. Of the 4 groups, it was people in the first group, the ones that had labeled their feelings, who were the calmest. The ones who had been the most precise about their emotions got the closest. When we name a feeling, we can then observe it. We can begin asking ourselves, what choices do I have? And what do I really want? To name is to be active instead of passive. So let's begin. Most of us need some inspiration to get started. Here are some ways to engage your mind with the process of creating a word. Walking. Take a walk if you can, noticing your environment. As you go, use your 7 senses. Yes, 7. Hearing, taste, smell, sight, touch, vestibular, which is how our body balances and moves, and proprioception, which tells us how we move through a space and how much force to use, the difference between cracking an egg and crushing it. Try to identify 3 examples of each sense. Be curious and attentive to what calls out for your attention. There's no wrong way to do this. Visualize. Alternately, take a moment to visualize a place you love. This can be a natural environment like a state park or a built one like a backyard. It can be a place you have lived in or visited many times, or it can be a place you have only been to once, but which you remember vividly. Close your eyes and visualize this place. Think about the 7 senses and try to come up with 3 examples of each. Be precise. If you know the name of something, such as a plant, then jot it down. Talking with others. Talk with friends and family about issues relating to climate destabilization in your area. What do people feel or care about in your region? Reading. Look over news articles, or, if you are a visual person, look at pictures. Read work by environmental writers. Hot House is inspired by the writings of the environmental philosopher Glenn Albrecht, among others. He has coined many new terms to describe our changing environment. His most famous word is solastalgia, which is the mental distress caused by negative environmental change in a place one loves or lives in. It's the homesickness you have while still at home. Not all is lost, however. It is important to also identify positive earth emotions to create a better future. Solophilia is one of these words. Out of love for a place and its ecosystems springs a willingness to accept the political responsibility for protecting and conserving them at all scales, big and small. Hope and joy are present in this project. Our grief is often born out of love for something or someone. To preserve what we love, we need to name it so that we can share its importance with others. Work backwards. First, think of a feeling, situation, or phenomenon you want to describe or define. It can be something big or something small. All are good. Consider, as you work on your definition, to better hone it, you might consider, is it a person, place, or thing? Is it a kind of action? Who or what is doing it? Is it a feeling? Is it positive, negative, neutral? What is the cause of the feeling? What are the possible effects of experiencing this feeling? Is it an experience, a situation, or a phenomenon? What has to be in place for this thing to happen? Is there a particular setting, weather event, a group of people, a lack of people? What are the conditions, good, bad, or neutral, that make this thing happen? Stay open. You never know what might inspire you. Follow your gut. Poet John Ashbery said, "Poetry is mostly hunches." For example, my region suffers from sea level rise. Most of the rivers in my city are brackish, a mix of fresh and salt water. Whenever there is a big storm or a particularly high tide, there is flooding. As I watched drivers plow through a flooded street the other day, I suddenly came up with a name for a common problem in our area. Brack broke. When your car slowly breaks down or rusts due to salt from flooded coastal roads eating through the undercarriage. Phrasing. In the Western world, when scientific names are created, there are sets of rules. This project is not restricted by these rules. In fact, we push against the colonialism embedded in the preference for Latin and Greek scientific names. We encourage you to use the language of your community if that's what works best for you. It's important to make our own rituals, examine our own lives and the lives of those who aren't human. In any case, it can be helpful to think of what naming usually includes in the scientific community. When creating a name, you must decide which characteristics are the most primary or useful to pass on. For example, poison ivy is both name and warning. Its Latin name contains a similar caution. Toxicodendron radicans combines the Greek word toxikos, poison, and dendron, tree, which is the family of poisonous plants it belongs to, plus radicans, root or vine, so people know what it looks like. Both the formal and informal name for this plant contain valuable information. Some possibilities for description. Size, how it compares to other things. Form. Color. Habits or actions. Location or geography. Other characteristics of the situation, feeling, or phenomenon. Names can be derived from the names of people or places. Mythological names can often be used to help with description, usually from Greek mythology, but could be from mythology or whatever culture you come from or grew up with. If you want to make a Latinate word, go for it. I was never taught Latin, but as I looked over the word lists, I realized that I knew a lot of the roots from contemporary English. Many words are simply combinations of Latin or Greek root words joined together. For example, biology, where bio, or life, is joined with ology, which means the study of something. So, biology is the study of life. But you probably knew that already. See, you can do this. I'll show you my process of how I create a Latinate word after I've honed in on an idea. I started with eco, because I already know it. Eco originally meant house, or where one lives. In this case, the planet Earth. The average citizen is not creating major pollution. I wanted a word to describe the corporations or governments who create the lion's share of the world's global emissions. Here is a link for a word list of Latin and Greek root words. As you skim over the list, note any that catch your interest and start defining from there. Alternately, if you have an idea, you can press the Control and F buttons at the same time, which pops up the Finder. Type in a keyword like loss. If the word is in the list, the Finder will move you automatically to it. Latin dictionaries use hyphens to show where a root word typically goes, at the beginning, middle, or end of a word. If the hyphen is at the end, like eco hyphen, that means it usually goes at the beginning. If the hyphen is in front, like hyphenology, that means it is something to be added on. I choose -dem since it means loss, and it's the root version that goes in the middle. Last, I look at a suffixes or endings page and choose ist, which means a person who does an action. So my final word is ecodemnists, the small group of powerful people whose corporations or governments are responsible for 71% of the world's global emissions. Percentage taken from the Climate Accountability Institute. For more information on how to put Latinate words together, see our resources page. Finally, give yourself time. You might have an idea right away, or you may not. Your mind may be taken up with other responsibilities right now. But just setting aside time and attention for our changing world is a worthy act. Be patient with yourself. The creativity will come. Margaret Atwood once said, "A word after a word after a word is power." Naming can be a gift, a bridge, a hope, a reckoning. By taking the time to name, we are showing care for ourselves and others, our families, our communities, our ecosystems, our planet. Thanks for being present, and happy naming!